Welcome to Sports Quotes and Facts Untold. Today I'm joined by Alex Hay, the former Tranmere and Rushden Diamond striker. Alex, how's it going this morning?
Yeah, all good, thanks. I'm just having a nice sip of my coffee just to get going first.
It's an early one because I appreciate you've got a busy day ahead. You've also been a scout with Tranmere, with Chester, with Stockport and with Fylde. So what is it you're up to now at the moment, Alex?
Currently, I work full-time, got a job in a school, a secondary school in Kirby. Believe it or not, I'm a careers advisor in that school. I've been there probably for about 4 years. But on the side of that, I've got a coaching business where I do one-to-one and team coaching called Blossom Skills. That's been running for about 2 years now. It's going really, really well. The only sort of sad side of it is I can't fit enough people in, but it's brilliant just to keep me involved in the game as much as I can.
Yeah. And obviously, Alex, I can tell that you're very passionate about football. What are your very earliest memories of the game?
I think it's just being around it from a very young age. I had an older brother who loved football. My dad was really interested in football as well. So it's just what's around you. And I think when I was young, I'm not going to say when you were younger because you seem a lot younger than I was, but all you used to have was a ball and pretty much a wall. That was it. So you just be playing football as soon as you get home from school until it sort of goes dark. So it was just what I was used to, especially in the area. That's all you had to sort of entertain you. So that's all I enjoyed doing.
Yeah. And I am a little bit younger, but I am old enough to remember Tranmere's cup exploits. And I am an Evertonian. So it's a bit of a sore topic for me.
Yeah.
But what are your recollections of sort of Tranmere when you were growing up?
I think I lived probably about 5-minute walk from the ground. So I could always see the floodlights on, especially of an evening game. And then I started going to the matches quite young. They used to play on a Friday night when I was young, especially the home games. And I used to go along with my brother and my dad. And because it was so local, it just grabbed me attention straight away. So the more you go, the more you feel part of it. You get to know the team, the players. And I just loved it. I loved the atmosphere. I loved everything about it. And I'm still a massive Tranmere fan, so that formed the foundations really to go on and want to go and watch the games and be interested both home and away. So it was a massive thing growing up, and especially with Liverpool and Everton just over the water. I think for me to support Tranmere, who at the time were probably moving up the divisions, and then once I'd left school, they were in the Championship towards the end of my school life. They were in the Championship and a good, strong Championship side. So I got to see a lot of success. But for me to remain a Tranmere fan and be a true Tranmere fan, like sort of staying away from Liverpool and Everton was a big deal. But it's something I'm proud of as well, to be honest, because it's easy to go to sort of look towards the bigger clubs. The clubs that are sort of doing well in the competitions. But I used to stand my ground in school as much as I can and wear Tranmere stuff as often as I could.
Yeah. And how special were those Friday nights? Because as you say, Everton and Liverpool on the doorstep. That was a really good move by the club, I thought, to have that Friday night football. And for me, I'm an Evertonian, but I would go to Tranmere quite regularly. And there was something about Tranmere. It was just like this never say die attitude. The amount of last minute winners I've seen at Prenton Park, it just feels like Tranmere would always pull it out the bag.
Yeah, especially those younger years when I was there, to say John King was manager and the team was sort of developing slowly but surely. But they went all the way from the lowest professional division all the way up to the Championship by playing amazing football. And I think the idea of them playing on the Friday was brilliant, because you will get a lot of Everton and Liverpool fans coming over just to watch live football on the Friday before they go to their games on the Saturday. I think St. Greavesy used to make a big thing of it on the Saturday afternoons before the games, where they talk a lot about the Tranmere games. And it just seemed like perfect under the floodlights. It's just amazing. It grabs you. So, yeah, as I say, it's a massive memory for me. And to obviously get to the stage where I played for them was just unbelievable. But as I say, I'm still a massive Tranmere fan now. So it's a bit frustrating at the moment.
Yeah. So who were your heroes back then, Alex, just growing up? And then as you sort of got involved with the club a bit closer?
Well, Ian Muir was the one who scored all the goals when I was really young. And then going through, they had so many good players. Kenny Irons, who was there when I was first left school. Johnny Morrissey was probably my favourite player. He was a winger. His dad played for Everton. But he was just, for me, he was just magic on the wing. He'd had one trick, really, which doesn't say a lot about, but it worked every single time. He'd drop his shoulder and put some unbelievable crosses on. As it moved forward, obviously, John Aldridge came in and was obviously the most famous goal scorer. And he was manager when I left school and when I started playing there. So I think that all those names, but Moxie, John Morrissey was my hero. And I was lucky enough when I'd left school in '98, he was still there, he was in his final year. So I got to be in them and train with him. I played a couple of reserve games with him. So it was it's just amazing for me.
And what was that like, Alex? Did you seem to levitate towards him when you wanted some advice, or were you a bit starstruck? What was that like being in the same team as your hero?
I think when I first walked in, it was crazy for me, to be honest, because as I say, it's like when you meet your heroes, but then getting to speak to them on a daily basis. And I pretty much moved into the training with the first team quite early on. When I'd left school in '98, I was probably training with the first team probably 2 months in. So I was in the mound, but then doing jobs for them and doing the boots and things like that. It's just so exciting, and it's just like a crazy time because it didn't seem real, to be honest. Because like 6 months earlier, I was watching them. I was on the stand and I remember watching. I think it was Aldridge's last game, and he scored against Bolton a penalty, and later on it was his last ever professional game. And like another month and a half, I was up training with them, running around sandhills and things like that. So it's just an amazing thing. And even now today, I'll play in charity games for the Tranmere ex-players team, and I get to play with some of the players who are a lot older than me, but they're my heroes, and I'm stood on the pitch thinking, wow, this is just amazing, like just to be next to them, and it just doesn't seem real sometimes.
Yeah. And what's the story, Alex, of you actually signing for Tranmere? You know, when were you spotted? How did that come about?
It came about quite young, really. I think I'd played Sunday League. I'd signed for a club called Shawville, and I was playing a year above myself for whatever reason. I don't think my age had a sort of team. So they said, I'll come down. I came on a sub, and I did really well. But I think I'd grown up just playing with my brother. So he was about 4 years, and his mate's 4 years older than me. So I'd just get battered in the park by them. But it brings you on. It makes you develop a little bit more. So I played a couple of Sunday League games and scored loads of goals. And I think a Tranmere scout grabbed me dad and was like, do you want to bring him down? And it was like, yeah, I'll go down. And that's it. I signed very early with Tranmere. I was there from the age of 10, I think, with the School of Excellence. But it was different then. There wasn't as much pressure in terms of the amount of hours you'd have to be there. So I'd train once a week. And I don't even think we were playing games at that age. It was just training once a week, where a lot of it was skill and sort of technical side of things. And then I was playing for my Sunday League team and obviously your school. And I think I was playing for Cubs at the time and things like that as well. So I was still able to do all those things. But Tranmere was from a really young age, and I was there for a long time. But I think as things developed and sort of my sort of playing levels, a lot of the bigger clubs came in sniffing around, probably from the age of 14 up until, well, when I was leaving school. I'd had a lot of offers from sort of about the two bigger clubs in the area, Liverpool and Everton, but clubs like Man City and things like that, they'd all come in for me at one point or another.
Yeah. And when you are at that age, Alex, and you know you don't have an agent, I'm expecting. How do these big clubs approach you? Is it through the family? Is it through the club? How does that process work?
Yeah, it's just through contacts, really. So they come to games and then speak to your parents. They get hold of numbers. It's the same as today. You can always get hold of a number if you need one. But it was on house phones then, so it was all very different. But you just get random phone calls, and it'd be like, speak to your parents, so it would be speaking to my dad rather than my mum. And it was just conversations like that. And then it'd be having a meeting and them offering you what they thought was a good deal, or we'll offer you 2 years instead of the one, or as it developed, it was like you'd be offered your YTS, but then you'd be offered a year's pro or 2 years pro on top of that. So it was starting, as you go up the ages, it was getting more and more serious. I think Everton put a lot of pressure or a lot of intent on trying to sign me. I think that I went for a meal with Joe Royle and things like that. So they were really like, and I was very close to signing for them a couple of times. I went training with them. I played in a tournament with them and did really well. And I think there was one game I was playing at, I think it was Bellefield, it would have been. And I think they had a balcony looking over the main pitches. And Colin, I think it was his number 2, Colin Harvey, I think it was watching the game. And I think I scored about 6 goals. And he stormed down, was like, he has to sign for our club. He's got to, sort of thing. And it was more loyalty in the end which stopped me from doing it. I thought Tranmere were in the Championship, and I looked at the progression of their young players, and they were getting a lot into the sort of first team, and they were a good Championship club. John Aldridge was there. I was a striker at the time, and I just thought, this is like what's best. They had a coach called Warwick Rimmer, and he'd got so many young players through, and in the end it was the idea I wanted to get in the first team. It wasn't just about doing a YTS and then being a pro. Wanted to get in the first team. I think that was the final thing for me. I just thought that was the best route and the biggest opportunity for me to get into the first team.
Yeah, and I'm sure being a Tranmere fan helped, Alex, but it also sounds like you were very grounded and had a very wise head on young shoulders at that time. What do you think?
I think that's due to your, I think it's due to your education, how you're brought up as well. I mean, you can't get ahead of yourself. I was never able to. I'd been slapped down to earth by my brother and his friends. It just wasn't an option for me. And my group of friends were just like, it's just what you do. It's not. So it never happened like that. I was never got ahead of myself. And I think the idea that it helped me play, like being a Tranmere fan, helped me. But in longer ways, moving forward, it possibly hindered me a little bit because I had too much care. I cared too much and too much passion. And I think sometimes it didn't help me because I was never relaxed when I was playing. I think I learned that as I went on, and now I'm an old man at 41. I understand that, but in lots of ways it hindered me as well. And I think if I had I think Everton offered me, I think it was a 2-year pro deal, I think, and they offered me a bit of money as well to sign. But I stayed at Tranmere. If I had that decision again, would I look at it? I don't know. I'd probably look at it more seriously because I think what happens is you'll start off at the bigger clubs, and then you filter down. So I could have ended up at Tranmere anyway if it didn't work out at Everton. And would things have been different? Possibly. But then when I'd gone to Tranmere, as I say, I was training with the first team really, really quickly. In those first 2 years, I was on fire in terms of scoring goals. It was just, I scored a crazy amount of goals. So if you look at it like that, it probably worked the way it should have because I went straight into the first team pretty much, or training with them every day.
Yeah, and around that time as well, there was Tony Thomas made the move. Steve Simonsen made the move and forged a really good career for himself. So I think Graham Allen made the reverse move.
Yeah,
as well,
reverse move. We always seem to have a good relationship with Everton because clubs seem to come and go across. Whereas Liverpool, there wasn't that many, or didn't seem to be that many. But Everton always seemed to be the club where they'd add filter to us, or our younger lads would go on to go there because Simo lived with my dad's. My dad's was a bit of a digs. So we had a few players, Joe Murphy, Richard Hines and Simo. And I remember when that move was sort of happening, the house phone was going mental because he was still living in ours when he was signing for Everton. It was just like a crazy time, like because he was going to this Premier League club and he was living in our house, and I was a bit like, oh my God, this is amazing. So it was exciting time, that really.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, Alex, your father's role with some of the Tranmere youth players. Was it more just a base for them, or was he sort of a father figure to them? How did it work?
No, it was just the digs that was used. So I think it was a big enough house, and we had 2 spares. So Simo came over, and then when he'd left and obviously signed for Everton and things like that, he moved out, and it was the younger one. So when he went full time, Joe Murphy was from Ireland, so he came over. So it was just used as a digs, really. Obviously, the part of the family and things like that, so they were there and everything like that. So it was brilliant because especially when I was younger, to have like a professional footballer in my house was like, oh my God, isn't this amazing? So my mates would be around and things like that. So yeah, it was good. It was just part of growing up, really.
Yeah, and just to go back to the meal with Joe Royle, Alex, what are your memories of that? And as a football manager, what sort of things is he saying to entice you to the football club?
I think it was just more so to sell the club and what it was about and why they were trying to sign it and where they see you moving in the forward. And I'm not going to say it was a full sit-down meal, but he definitely popped in for a while and things like that. But they were putting on the pressure, as I say. They were chatting about money, which probably goes under the radar and things like that. But it was just they were putting massive pressure on me because they really wanted me. And that idea of it is like, for me now, it's like I'd have loved someone wanting me because it would have really made me feel good. Whereas Tranmere were just there in the background. I think they knew I was a fan, and I think it was normal. So I got on the side of the pitch quite often with Tranmere, or I'd sort of been in the training ground with the first team. So it was just a normal thing then. But then Everton throwing the pressure on was like a big idea. And I think I'd been in a couple of England squads at under 16 and things like that. So it was just, I think it just came down to obviously who I supported and getting into the first team. And that's what it was.
Yeah. And in those England teams, Alex, were there any sort of players that really went on to make a good career in the Football League or Premier League?
Well, I remember it was so you'd play for your county. So I'd play for Whittle first, and then it'd move on to Merseyside. So you play for Merseyside, so it would be the best of Liverpool schools, Kirby schools, all those, the Whittle schools. And there was some amazing players in that year group. Some have gone on to, I think Vicky Lambert was in there. I think Vicky wasn't even involved in Merseyside. It just shows the sort of different levels of progression sort of thing. And then it went from, as you started getting to under 15, I played for the Northwest against the other sort of regions and things like that. And then it got into the England squads. And I remember Joe Cole being there. And at that age, he was just ridiculous, like skillful, like I've never seen. You couldn't get near him, strong, would go past 4 or 5 players on a regular basis. And I think when I watched him go forward, it was sort of that side of his game was coached. That it seemed to be coached out because I think he'd been with Mourinho, and that's no disrespect to Mourinho, but he's very structured and you have to do this job, and if you don't do it, you won't be in the team. And I think that sort of shut that side of his play down. It was just unbelievable. I think Jermain Defoe was on a couple of training things and players like that. So there was Franny Jeffers was there as well, and I think he was the year above me in school, but he was dropping down to our league. But some of these players had unbelievable careers, and I think my issue was, even at that young age, I didn't feel like I deserved to be there. I had that sort of inferior sort of personality where it's like it's like imposter syndrome, I think, or something like that, where I've been put in there and I don't actually deserve it. Where if I thought about it now, I was there for a reason. I was obviously good enough and things like that, but it just wasn't meant to be. But when you come across those players, you sort of look at them and think, oh my God, they are really, really good. It's definitely an experience where you see where they've gone. I think it's the other side of it which fascinates me now. It's more the mental side. It's not so much the ability. So many people have the ability, but it's the mental side of it that fascinates me as an older person looking back now. And I think a lot of those players that went on to those massive things had the mental side of it, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about mentality, Alex, I'm sure that was a massive thing for the Tranmere sides in the late 90s and early 2000s with their cup exploits. What are your memories about those giant killings?
Amazing memories, that's what I'll say. I think I was in the mound, so I think the first one I'll talk about was obviously the Everton one. It's the one that springs to our mind as both fans of both clubs. It's probably Everton's worst afternoon sometimes, and our best one, which I understand we've got to celebrate it. You need to forget about it. But I travelled with the team that day, so I was in the squad, which was like a really big thing for me. And we've been on some massive cup games, and we stayed at a hotel on the Whittle night before and travelled over to the ground. I wasn't picked to be sub, so obviously I was gutted, but I wasn't expecting to be. And I was like, where do we sit? What do we do? Do we sit on the bench in the background? Do it? So I thought, no, I'm going with the fans. So I sneaked off around the pitch, and I got in with like my brother and things like that, and I got into the fans bit. And it was amazing. Like obviously the day went perfectly for Tranmere, and Jay scored his goal, and Yatesy got the 2. But I remember after the game, I had to get back to the dressing room. So I was like, I'm just trying to tell the stewards I've got to get back home. They're like, you're not going. I'm like, no, I've got to. So I was cleaning up the kit after the game and everything, and getting it all the kit back on the stuff. And then I went out with Jason that night. We were over in Liverpool having a few drinks, and we got chucked out of a bar because it was on Match of the Day in the background. And I think the doorman had got on to Jason, were like, there's looks coming your way, you need to get out of here now. Like, so they shut us out the back way, and we were like, what? We're just having a quiet night. But it was just an amazing experience just to be in the round and be part of it. And obviously for us to beat Everton 3-0 that day, I don't think it'd ever happen again for a team in the championship to win away. it was a massive thing. But we were just on the crest of a wave during those years, especially in cups. The league we struggled, but in cups, I think the Southampton one was another massive one. Again, I wasn't involved, but I remember being in the dressing room at half time, because you'd go down into the dressing room, stay in the background, listen to what was being said, and that second half was just unbelievable. But I remember Aldridge, like, everyone obviously went out that night celebrating, and the day after, I think they went out celebrating, and we come in the following day, and Aldo ran everyone until he was sick, and the older players were fuming, like, what is that all about? We've just come back, and he was like, that's for the fucking first half performance. And I think there was a lot of backs that were put up the wrong way, because, like, everyone was sort of proud of what they'd done in the second half. But that was just the way it was. But the experience of those games was just to be in and around them, to be in the dressing room, to see what's going on was fantastic. And I think once I'd eventually got into the first team at Tranmere, I think we got to the FA Cup quarter-final, which was a massive level to be at. And we got beat by Millwall, and Tim Cahill scored the winner, I think, in the end. But to be on a cup run, actually, as a player as well, was absolutely amazing. And I remember we got to the quarters, and Millwall were in the Championship. And I think we'd have played Sunderland in the semis. The draw was already done. And I think Sunderland were in the Championship as well. And sort of in your head, you start thinking, this is like, we won't ever get a better chance to be in an FA Cup final. And I know you're looking too far ahead, but you can't help it. It's like, if we beat these, and we could have beat Millwall, you start thinking Sunderland, Championship Cup, you've got a chance. You just don't know in a one-off game. So you start getting ahead of yourself. But obviously, to play in the FA Cup at any level is amazing. But to be a part of it in those levels, moving up the sort of the stages of it, is fantastic.
Yeah, and there was the Worthington Cup final as well. What are your memories of that day?
Yeah, I went down, was with the team. We were in the hotel before, the evening after. So the game, as a Tranmere fan, to be at Wembley is such a big thing. And I grew up, I went to Wembley a few times watching Tranmere, been to one playoff victory when we won 2 Leyland Daft, which is the league, Football League trophy now, I think it is. The pizza one, that's what they call it now, because it's sponsored by the pizza. But we played 2 finals. I've seen us lost one and won one. So at Tranmere and Wembley was something that I associated with anyway. But to get to a major cup final was just the thrill of it, being around the place when all the interviews are going on and the trophy arrives for pictures, and it was just like unbelievable. And then the actual game itself, we'd done ourselves proud, we'd done so well, and we were in the game. We were actually in the game, and unfortunately they got the second goal quite quick after the first one, Clinton being sent off, and then Ned scored his goal. And just to be a part of that was just, that moment will live on with you forever. And then I think afterwards we had a big party in a hotel where it was all family there and things like that. It was just amazing to be a part of. But that spurs you on, because you want more of that. You want to feel that sort of thing again, which unfortunately I never did. But just to be in and around it was amazing.
Yeah, and you mentioned Joe Royle as one Everton icon who was sort of involved in your early career, and then there was another, Dave Watson.
He gave me my debut. He gave me my debut. I remember him coming in because, as I say, obviously he was really well known, and we won the FA Cup. We'd had Paul Ride out there and Stuart Barlow. So I've come across loads of ex-Everton players, and to be honest, they've all, especially Stewie and Paul Rideout, had like big impacts on my career. Mike Newell came in as a coach later on as well. So these all have big impacts on my career in terms of me growing up and them talking to me, especially like Paul Rideout, who played at the top level for such a long time. And he used to pull me aside and chat to me, and it sort of had like a big effect on me personally. And when people take the time out to talk to you. But I remember Dave coming in, and I think when a manager goes, so when Aldo left, it's a funny one, because some players are happy, some players are sad. It depends where you stand in the pecking order. But I saw it as a total fresh chance to get into the first team, because I think under Aldo I've been sub a number of times but not got on. And I think he'd sort of, I got to the end of the line with him. He just hadn't seen enough, and what he wanted me to do, I wasn't possibly sort of capable of doing, in terms of, he expected things done in a certain way, where I wasn't that type of player. But that was him, and some of the things he'd said to me was spot on. It was unbelievable. But the way he was, and his sort of aggressive side of him, didn't help me as a character. I needed someone to put their arm around me, and that just wasn't him. It wasn't him. And like, as I say, I've seen him since, and he was like, he couldn't have been happy that I got in the first team. He was so nice and like proud of where I got to. But from where I started, I'll talk about Alder. I'll get on to Watson. I'm sorry, I'm going off in a tangent.
Fascinating to listen to.
I think in my first year, I think I'd scored 40 goals in the youth team reserves, and if I'd have been thrown into the first team, then I'd have gone on to like different levels, because I didn't have any fear. I think at the first time I trained with the first team, like me and Clint were having a right battle, like and I never felt like we were having a battle, but people were walking away from it, saying Alex getting in with Clint and having a vessel with him and things like that. And that was just part of what I was doing. I wasn't thinking about doing it. And I was training with all these players. And I remember Liam O'Brien walking up from the first team training ground. We were training at Ingleborough, which was just near the ground there. And walking up with me, and he was like, "How old are you?" And this Liam O'Brien, he's played World Cups and things like that. And I said, like, "Oh, I'm just 16." And he's like, "You've got a massive chance." And I was just, oh my God, like, I have got a chance. And because I was scoring so many goals, I was full of confidence, and everything was going perfectly well. And I think I scored away for the reserves against Bolton. I think Old just grabbed me after the game and was like, "Brilliant finish, well done, blah, blah, blah." And I think the next day, a couple of reporters asking questions about me and when I'm going to be in the first team. And he's like, he is more than capable and he'll be in there sort of soon. And I think I hung off that thinking, come on, when's my chance coming? I think he grabbed me and was like, "If I had my choice, you'd be in now for the final 10 games of the season. You just play." But I think politics above sort of prevented that. You'd have players on a lot of money above me, a hell of a lot of money. I think I was only on £120 a week. And there was players on like thousands of pounds then a week. And I think the pressure from above prevented that at that point. And I think if I'd have gone in then, it'd have been totally different, because as I started growing up, my mentality changed and I became more fearful and worried about making mistakes and things like that. So I think I'd come to the end of my line with Aldridge in terms of getting into the first team or a regular space in the squad or on the bench, whatever it may be. And I think Dave Watson coming in sort of gave me a fresh impetus. I could like start again, and it was really like breath of fresh air for me personally. He came in, he brought a fitness coach in, so he was trying to move things forward. But a lot of the team was still, I'd say, and especially the senior players, were used to the old school side of football. So all this new sports science stuff would come in. It was like, "Whoa, what's going on? What's that all about? It's rubbish," and things like that. So there was a lot of issues like that. But for me personally, he seemed to take a shine to my character straight away. And like I was always bubbly and smiley and wanted to give everything I had. And he sort of took that in, and I was involved with the first team straight away. And then I came on away at Brentford, I think. I think we got beat 4-0, I think it was. And I came on for the final 15. And I was bright. I was running around and I had half a chance. And I think I heard him chatting on the coach saying, he put himself in a position. So I thought, right, I've got a chance of being sub on a Tuesday. I'll have a chance of it. And then as soon as I got to the ground, he was like, "You're starting." And I was like, "Oh my God." But he was really good. And what's different about him was, I think he was such a warrior on the pitch and a leader and things like that. Off the pitch, he was quiet. He was quiet in the dressing room. He wasn't screaming and shouting. He'd chat to me, and that personally helped me out. I don't want someone screaming at me. I wanted someone talking to me. And I just remember him grabbing me before that game, saying, because we were playing Preston, who were the league championship. I think we were in League One. And I just remember him saying that this is your chance. TV cameras are here. I've got full belief in you. Go and enjoy it for what it is. And I think it just gave me confidence going into that game. And obviously the game went well. I played well. But Dave was great, but I just didn't think it was ever going to work at Tranmere. Just something didn't fit for whatever reason. It didn't fit, and sometimes I think now looking back, was he too nice as a manager at that point? Obviously, I know more about how football clubs work now in the background and issues with chair people and chairmen and chairwomen and things like that. And there's a lot goes on, and maybe at that point he was too nice to be a manager, if that makes sense. And maybe he's still involved with the coaching at Newcastle or something like that. He's up that way now because I bumped into him in the Newcastle game a couple of times. But I just think sometimes he was too nice, if that makes sense. And I don't know if I probably not allowed to say that because he's such a legend and things like that. But that was my impression of him then. He was brilliant for me.
Yeah, and where do you think you fit in that dressing room, Alex? Because as you say, there were old school characters, and you were this young, bubbly character. Where did you fit? Did you fit in quite well, or did you feel a difference as well?
No, I always felt like I fitted into dressing rooms. There was no issue with that because I'd work hard no matter what happened. I'd always put my effort in because no one could ever accuse me of not working or putting effort in. So there was never an issue like that. And I think people can have a go at your playing ability and things like that. But as long as you're giving 110%, they will always back you because they know what they're going to get out of you. The older pros were always brilliant with me because they saw how much I cared and how much I wanted to work. And some of the older pros were sort of pulling me the other way and say, you're working too hard. Like, just calm down. You need to do your business at the top end when we've got the ball, not when we haven't got the ball. And that was some of the strikers saying to me, just stop closing down as much. Just relax, get your breath. And then when you've got the ball, you can do something with it. So the older players were, and I always looked up to the older players. I mean, we had players who played at the top level. Nick Henry, another scouser, he was amazing with me in terms. He was a midfielder, but just being able to chat to you and talk about his experience was fantastic. But I think the older players, dressing rooms are funny places, but I always felt like I fitted in. I was never sort of above my station. I'd always look to smile, and even when things weren't going great or I'd be sub and I felt like it shouldn't be, so I'd never sulk. I'd get on with it. I'd be a good professional. I'd be supporting my teammates. Even in the background, if I'm thinking I'm fuming here, I'm raging here, I should be playing things, it was never an issue. So I felt like I always was a good teammate, and everyone sort of respected that and liked me for that.
Yeah. And I know, Alex, that your first goal for Tranmere, it was a good day for yourself, but perhaps not a great day for the team at Mansfield.
That was horrific. It was awful. We played against Southampton on a Tuesday in the Worthington Cup. They were a Premier League team and a good Premier League team then, and we got beat 6-1. It was at St Mary's. I think I played wide that game. I think I played wide left or wide right, and I'd done okay. In fact, no, I was probably poor, to be honest, but the whole team was poor. We got beat 6-1, but it was against a Premier League team, so you can sort of get away with that. I think the Saturday before we beat Stockport 1-0, and I played in that and done well. Didn't score, I missed an absolute sitter. Like, I still to this day don't really understand how I missed it, but I missed it. But we managed to win the game 1-0. And then we went into Saturday, and Mansfield were really struggling away from home. And they were right at the bottom of the league and they were struggling. So in our minds, we had to go there and put on a performance. We being beat 6-1. And the first half was fantastic. I scored my goal. I think it was in the 13th minute. It was a knockdown from a corner. I think Simon House headed it down. I just got in front of the keeper and put it in from a few yards. But that moment, obviously, it was in front of the Tranmere fans, so I got to celebrate in front of them. And then for that rest of the first half, I was absolutely buzzing. I think the keeper pulled off another couple of great saves off me, and I was everywhere, buzzing everywhere. So we got in at half time, we're 1-0 up, and I'm thinking, this is like amazing. Let's go on, win the game. I scored my first goal, won another goal. That's how confident I was feeling. And then the second half, I don't even remember what happened. And I remember Simon Alf, my strike partner, getting sent off. But by that time, I think it was already 5-1, I think. So the game had just gone, and I didn't understand it, but their sort of dressing rooms, you had to walk through the Tranmere fans to get back. It was at the other end of the pitch. And I remember there was just commotions going on. I hung back, and there was people throwing shirts. There was like, I'm not going to say punches being thrown, but there looked like there was punches being thrown. There was murder going on, and I was like, wow, what's happened? So I've gone in, and the Tranmere fans were nice to me. Obviously, I'd scored my goal, and they were all right with me. So I'd legged it in and got in there, and obviously the manager had gone off his head. And we got in the coach, and I'm like, I didn't know how to be, because I was like on cloud nine because I'd scored my goal. And I was like, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to speak to. I need to speak to me. I'm so happy, but I'm devastated. I remember going home, and I got a KFC that night. I know that's like not professional at all, but I remember eating the KFC bucket on the couch, waiting for Sky Sports to come on so I could see my goal. And it was amazing because I got to see the goal, but it was just strange emotions because getting beat 6-1, it's just no one remembers that. You know what I mean? And so it was just, as good as it was just a nightmare scenario.
Yeah. And you had a loan at Morecambe as well in 2002, and you actually scored 4 goals in one game.
Yeah, well, that came about. So after that Mansfield game, we played, not Mansfield, I'm trying to think back now. So this was before that, so we go back. So I'd made my debut on the Saturday against Brentford, played on the Tuesday against Preston. We played Swindon on the Saturday away, and we drew 2-2. I think Graham Allen scored, Jason Kumar scored. And I'd done well enough again. Didn't score, but I'd done well enough. Hard place to go, but I'd done well enough. And I got food poisoning that night. Wasn't off for KFC. It sounds awful, doesn't it? But I got food poisoning that night, and I remember I was just ill the following Sunday, and we had a game on a Tuesday. I can't remember a game being against Wrexham. I don't know. It was against one of these clubs, and I went into training early on the Monday because I thought I need to see the physio. I'd look white to go. I'd not stopped being sick, and I think the physio grabbed me and was like, "Oh my God, you look horrendous. Like, go home." But I was in my head. I thought, I've got to be right for Tuesday. I've got to be, because I didn't want to. Back then, I'd do anything not to lose my place. I can't lose my place because it's going to be so hard to get in, because they had so many bigger name strikers in the background. I knew it was going to be hard for me to get back in, but I couldn't fizz. So I was sick, and then I carried on being sick on that Monday. They got me in to see the doctor in the morning of the Tuesday, and the doctor was like, "No, he can't be involved. He's got no fluids in him. He's like horrendous." So I lost my place, and Stuart Barlow come in for him. He scored a hat-trick, and then he played again on the Saturday and scored a hat-trick again. So it's like, I've lost my place and no one's talking about me anymore. So I think what had happened was I'd gone a month or 2 months without being in the first team squad again, not even being sub, and I was like, oh, what do we need to do? And I think they'd lost their striker, their main striker, and they'd come in for a loan. Dave Watson spoke to me, said, "This isn't a loan for you to go out and leave Tranmere. This is a loan to get you playing again into competitive football." It's like, that's fine. That sort of cements that in my mind. That's what I needed. But I think Mike Newell come in probably a week before that as reserve team manager. And I'd never met Newley before. I think Paul Bardot obviously knew him and knew who he was. And Miller said he's off his head. He's a nutter. So he said, but he's very good. So in the first training session, he watched like 11 aside. We having a training game, and he pulled me aside after 10 minutes and he was like, "You're doing this wrong. You need to be seeing the ball on this angle, blah, blah, blah." And he was so spot on. I was like, "Oh my God, this is like brilliant." So I went out on loan and scored, I think it was 6 goals in that month on loan. Obviously I scored the 4 in the one game, which was brilliant. And then I scored a couple more. So I was flying, I was doing dead well. And Newley had sort of said, like, and to be fair to Dave Watson, sometimes when you go out on loan, it's not so much anymore because they have loan managers and things like that, but you were forgotten about. But he sent people to watch the games and keep me up to date. So I knew I was still part of it there, which was nice. And then I'd gone back to Tranmere. I was playing in reserves, I was scoring loads of goals, and Newley was like, "I will get you back in the first team, mate. It's not a problem. Just like stick with me, listen to what I say." And he did. He got me back in. And I think I played against... It was Wigan away, I think, and we won. And I played and done really well again. And my name wasn't on the squad list on the back of the programme. I remember it before the game, for whatever reason, the print said not printed my name. And Mike Newell said, "Don't worry about that." He said, "Everyone will know your name after this game. It's not a problem. Don't worry about it." And it was just little snippets like that. It's just getting your head and thinking, "Yeah, it's okay. That's giving me the confidence." It's brilliant. So yeah, I got back in, but I remember after that game, we'd won away at Wigan, and Stewie Barlow again scored the winner. See, he was holding me back, or he come on as sub for me and scored the winner. It's just Stewie's fault, everything. But I remember after that game, we played QPR at home the following Saturday, and I wasn't even sub. So I'd gone from starting to not being sub. So I went to Dave Watson. I was like, "What's going on?" Like, because Nick Henry was just saying, "You need to speak to him because that's not right. You've done well, so I don't understand where." And it was Dave Watson again, was like, "My hands are tied. It's just, there's too many players on big money need to be ahead of you." And I was just like, well, this is the politics holding me back. And it was just so frustrating. But I understand it from the other side now. You've either got to be outstanding, or you need a manager to be really strong, saying he's in the squad, that is what's happening. And I just think with his inexperience and in a managing sort of position and stuff like that, it was hard. And I totally understand it, because there was so much pressure on him because we've been relegated from the Championship. And Prenton Park can be a strange place when things aren't going great. It can become a bit poisonous quite quickly. And I think the tide had started turning with Dave because I think people were expecting us to go straight back up. And it's never as simple as that. So it was tough. But I think all those have a sort of impact on your own career and where it's at the time. It was just hard for me to cement my place.
Yeah. And you've spoken very candidly, Alex, about sort of your mental health struggles within the game. Where did that stem from? Was it a case of not being played, or what? Where did that come about?
I think football's horrible. It's not nice, and I think that there's the side of it which are horrible, and it's everyone's dream to be a footballer, and it's still my dream now, even though I'm 41. It's an amazing thing, but I don't think people understand the other side of it, how difficult mentally it can be, and that's from whether you're playing the games don't go great, everyone's got something to say. And even more, I couldn't have survived with social media now. It wouldn't have suited me whatsoever, because I forget all the goods and I remember the bads. And if I'm walking locally and people are saying you're shit or you're rubbish, it's not, and that personally grind me down. It was like, it killed me. So I'd take myself away from the areas and no one would have a clue who it was. So I wouldn't have to deal with those. And I had read newspaper reports and he said it wasn't very good today. And I felt like it was. So everything's like an impact on you. But it's not even that. If you don't win on a Saturday, it'll ruin your week. If you have a bad game, it'll ruin your week. If you have a bad training session, depending on the type of character you are, I will carry that round with me. So I wanted to be the best every day and be as good as I could. And if that didn't go well, I'd carry that round and I couldn't shake it off. And it did have an effect, and this is where I talk about, I only sort of recognise it now, but sort of when I got into the first team at Tranmere, I think the year after Dave Watson left, I was in the squad every week and I was playing more than I wasn't and things like that. But I think for me, I was on the pitch and I was so worried about making mistakes that I wouldn't do things that were natural to me. So I'd instead of turning and shooting, which I'd do in training and put it in the goal, I'd be laying it off and passing it to someone else, or a half chance to come my way, I'd control it and lay it to someone else where I'd just take the shots and score. But I wouldn't. I was overthinking it. I was scared sometimes, especially when I felt like I'd gone a few games without scoring. I was scared of getting a chance in case I missed it. And these are all things that were having an effect on my game time in professional games. And you'd only recognise it later on that can have a huge effect. And it's the stuff outside football, as I said, that'll bother you in your normal life that people don't see. And it can be horrendous, and it's horrible for the people around you, like your family and things like that, because it has that massive effect and it's so up and down. Football's so hard to deal with. That's why if you're not mentally strong, you might have all the potential in the world, but you won't succeed. It just won't happen. And unfortunately, I don't think I was mentally strong enough. And that's me being totally honest. Now I'm 41, so I've had the chance to sort of look back at my career, and I was nowhere near mentally strong enough, or I wasn't prepared for that. So now I think they do a lot more preparation in that, and there's a lot more psychologists involved and things like that. Now, if that was around when I'm playing, things could have been totally different, but it wasn't, and it wasn't something you'd ever talk about to anyone, or you couldn't say you were nervous or you were worried or you were anxious, or things just wouldn't happen. So it's just something that just had an effect on me then, and probably had an effect on my normal life when I was younger as well, without realising it, and still has a massive effect on me now. I think mental health's such a big thing now, and it's talked about really good. And I'm dead open about that because I think it's important for especially younger people and men especially to be able to talk about that. And I think when someone's willing to talk about it and open up about it, it's a big thing. So I'm more than happy talking about things like that. And still today, the effects of my football career have effect on me now, totally, all the time. I've talked about different syndromes and things like that, but I still struggle from day to day. But I think over time and speaking to counsellors and psychologists as I've got older, it sort of helped me manage it a little bit better, but it still comes into my life now. And I'll play five-a-sides, or I'll play in charity games, and that sort of imposter syndrome, it's called, still comes into my play now. And I'm 41, and I'll play in a charity game with people who I feel are big characters and they've played at this level and that level, and I'll be on the pitch thinking, can't really make a mistake here, or it's like I sink within myself, and that's my mentality. It's got nothing to do with it. They don't care. They're not bothered. They just pass you the ball and you play on. But it's in my head, and it's constantly there. And I'm trying to fight things in my head all the time, and that's in normal life as well. Forget the sporting side, it's in normal life. So things are really tough, but that mental side of it is such a big deal now.
Yeah. And obviously goalkeepers come under a lot of scrutiny because they're on their own in the goal. But do you think being a striker played its part in those difficulties as well? Because obviously you're judged on your goal scoring. You know, you might have held the ball up really well, won on your duels.
No
but
one
if
cares.
Alex hasn't got a goal next to his name and it goes on for a few weeks, you can start to be a bit unfairly judged, can't you?
I think so. I think what happens is you either have managers that will totally believe in you, that will see the play you're doing and forget the fans, forget all the noise from them. They will see what you're doing for the team and they will be like, you're playing. I don't care if you're scoring or not. You're doing that job, so he scores. And given that sort of confidence is a matching thing, or you have to score goals. It's one or the other, there's a fault. And I think me, I didn't, once I got in the first team, I didn't score enough goals. I was too scared to score goals. I think when I was in training and things like that, I think Stewie said, like, in an interview, he heard him say, and Simon Alf said it as well, who played for Wales, and he played in the Premier League for Coventry. Like, I was probably the best finisher in and out in training. But put me in a first team game, I'd overthink the situation totally. Where it just, nothing came naturally. I remember that first game, my first start against Preston, I had two, well, I say easy chance of one-on-ones, really. The first one, I was too excited. It come to me. I thought, yes, here's my goal. I totally backlined. The second one, I'd done everything that everyone had said to you. I'd took the ball off the defender, come towards the keeper. I had him, and this is all in a split second, don't forget, I had in my head, calm down, take a breath, relax, calm down. Said that to myself. I've tried to give the keeper the eyes and send the ball that way. I've done it a million times in training, and it just got me technique wrong, and it gone over the bar. But all that is like, it's all mental. It's in your head. It's like what is preventing you from doing what you do every day, and it's something in your head. And as I say, as I developed, the pressure of me not scoring was dragging on me so much. So I'd feel like I have to score. So I'd wait for the perfect chance. And if the chance wasn't perfect, I wouldn't take it. I'd turn around, I'd pass it to someone else. And I was getting a chance and it just wasn't happening. So that's why eventually I moved out wide. And playing out wide was like, it was like a breath of fresh air because I didn't have that pressure to score anymore. And I could go about my business. I could be dangerous. I'd get crosses in. I'd do all this. But I didn't have that pressure. And if I did score, scoring from wide is totally different things. It's like, oh, Alex Hayes putting the goals in now and things like that. So it's totally different. So a striker, I feel, is the hardest one because unless you're confident in your ability to score goals, you won't do it. And it fascinates me how these strikers keep going and that's where the mental self comes. And it's amazing. Honestly, it's such a major factor. And it's like, I love seeing people who score goals now because I think what is going on in their mind, you've got to be so strong and single-minded, and to do that, forget your ability makes, it doesn't matter. It's that mental side, and that gets the goals in. And I think being a striker is so hard. It's so confidence-based. It's ridiculous. But if you can manage that confidence and remain confident in your own ability, you'll have a chance. It's just when you can't do that, you're struggling. When you're fully confident player, when you need other people to give you that confidence when things aren't going great, it's not going to work out.
Yeah. When you were in the first team, Alex, you played with some top strikers. There was Simon Howarth, Eugene Dardy, Ian Hume. What are your memories? What are your memories of those three?
Just like great players, like really good players, but jealousy as well, to be honest, because they could score, and that's what I could do, but I couldn't do it, if that makes sense. And you could do it, but I wasn't doing it. So it's like, I think Hume got in the first team at a really young age, but I think I scored my first team goal before he did. So it was like Hume come along. We were on a tournament in France. It was like the end of the season, start of the new season. So we were in a tournament in France, and Hume come in on trial. I think we played Porto, we played Paris Saint-Germain, and I got the top goal scorer in that tournament. We won the tournament, and I've still got the trophy. I use it as a doorstop here, by the way. It's the only trophy I ever won. But I got the top goals, and I think because there was some big teams in it, like it was like a really good thing for me. But I remember, even though I finished top scorer, Hume come on about 20 minutes in that first game, and I was like, wow, look how sharp he is. I was like, oh my God, like it's scary sharp. And I was like, I need to up my game. And that's where it comes in again. I finished top scorer in that tournament. So I obviously did better, but I'm more worried about how good he is and how sharp he is. And he was a different player, totally different player than I was. But he was brilliant, and obviously he went on to really big things. And he's over in Canada now, but he plays with a group of lads I play with on Monday. So when he's back, he plays 5-a-side with these Mandenberg and headers. But he's still sharp now. And even though he's old, he's sharp as anything. And like when we come against each other, I'm like, just slow down, will you? You're doing me head. And like, but I think being around those players, I think makes you realise to be at the top level as a striker, you've got to be that good. You've got to be, and the finishing side of it, like you can't overthink it. Eugene was a great player, but Simon Alf used to just like, he was so laid back. What a player though, by the way. And if he didn't get his injury, he'd have been like huge for Tranmere. He'd have got them back up to the championship anyway. I really believe that. But his finishing was just so basic, but it was just like, just watch the ball, get a good contact, it'll go in, and that's it. There was no overthinking, there was no trying to bin one and things like that. It was just get a good contact on the ball and score. And these players who played at better levels, but when you come up against the best, so let's say Aldridge used to join in training sometimes, every finish was in the back of the net. It doesn't matter, it was just angles, he knew where to put the ball. He wouldn't overhit anything. Everything was just nice and calm. I let it in that corner. It was just like, how'd you do it? Like, how'd you stay calm? But that's in his head. That's just part of who he was. And I think these top strikers now, it fascinates me how they do, because they have got to be that good. And I'd love to watch some of the top ones just do finish, and just let me watch it, because just how they hit the ball and how clean it is, it's an amazing thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned some of your battles with Clint Hill. What are your memories of that? And did you expect him to, achieve what he did in the Premier League and with Rangers?
Do you know what? I'd say yes, but no, if that makes sense. Yes, because of his attitude, and off the pitch, he's the nicest fella ever. On the pitch, he's an absolute animal, but that's because he wants to win so much. And it was like that in training. If you were up against him in training, you're going to get battered. So you had to be willing to battle back, and you weren't, he'd just walk all over you. But his attitude was so good, and again, single-minded, like, I am that good, and he made the best of what he had, and he'll be the first one to say it. And I respect those people even more, because it's not a natural thing, but he has had that work mentality to go and put everything in he has got, and he's got to the top. And I listen to some of his chats now, and I still see, because he's assistant manager at Stockport now, and he playing the odd charity game when I'm there, and he's absolutely brilliant. But I've listened to some of his things, and he was so single-minded in what he wanted to do. He's made the best of his ability through hard work and desire, and he's played as a Premier League, like, to me, he's a Premier League player. But you'll chat to him, he's like, no, I wasn't a Premier League player. But you were. You're playing in the Premier League, so you are a Premier League player. And it's like, I'm not going to say proud, but I am proud of him, because he did that through just pure hard work and effort. And that's why he got a manager who believed in him and said, I want you in my team, because he might have made a few mistakes and things like that. However, for what he brings as a leader and on that pitch and the fight and desire is what you want. And when you see players like that who have worked hard enough to get to the top, then it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and we can't talk about Tranmere from that era without talking about Jason Koumas. Just what a supreme talent.
Scary, and I think that's what makes you realise, like, the top players, unbelievable. Like, he was just, could turn it on whenever he felt like it, and that takes a lot to say that about someone, but he literally could. He'd be talking about random things in the middle of a game, and then he'd just go and put one in the top corner because he meant to put it in the top corner, not because he struck one and it's gone off somewhere into the top corner. He's got the ball down and said, right, I'm putting the ball there, and he would do it. And it was just that blasé and unbelievable attitude. Now, you talk about, like, some people say he didn't have a good attitude, that's why he could have gone even bigger and better. But I think it was more an appetite for the game. I think Jace he seemed to be so blasé about it, and it came so easy to him. It was just a bit like, I've done my bit now, that'll do, sort of thing. So I'm not sure if he was in love with the actual game of football. It was just like, yeah, I'm good at it, so I'll do it. And I think that's why he didn't play the top level, because he could have. He had the talent to do it, like, without a doubt. But he's still playing the Premier League. He played international football. He didn't do bad, like. But I think people talk to him as like one that could have done better, because some of the major players have spoken about him and how good he was. And but to play like professional games with him, for me to be on a pitch, seeing it close, was just like, it's unbelievable. And like, I still see him, and he's still in this area. And obviously his son's doing very well now at Liverpool, so hopefully he can kick on. But he'll still beat and wave, and he's very much sort of isolates himself in the normal world. He's out and away from everyone. But what a talent he was! He was unbelievable, and he stands above anyone else for talents that have come about, really. Apart from, like, I'll say Joe Cole, from those training things that I was with him, he was unbelievable. But I played with other players who've gone on to play in the Premier League, but no one sort of touches him in terms of actual ability.
Yeah. And after the win at Goodison, Koumas was quite heavily linked to Everton. Do you know if that was ever a possibility?
I think it was just all talks. I don't know if it ever got to the point where they'd actually made contact with the club to buy him or anything like that. But I think it was always rumours. And with the big clubs being so close by, you'd expect them to have a look, or them to have had a look.
So then, when did you realise that your Tranmere career was probably coming to an end?
The final season, so Brian Little had taken over. And again, working with someone who'd worked in the Premier League was like so exciting for you, because you think, right, I can learn so much off him. And he came in, I had got an injury, I'd gone over on my ankle. So when he first come in, I was injured, and that's like quite frustrating as well, because a new manager comes in, you sort of, I'd been playing quite a lot under Ray Mathias. I'd been playing out wide. I was implemented in the squad, so I was a major squad player. I was either sub every week or I was starting. So I was involved, but I got an injury when Brian came in. So it was hard at first, because he was picking his teams and looking at players, and he'd not had a chance to look at me. But I remember the first training session, I was back involved with the first team, and I think my attitude sort of sprung out to him, because I was so bubbly and happy and things like that. So he took to me straight away, and I think he was like, who are you? So I'm like, oh, this is me, sort of thing. And I played in a couple of reserve games. And I scored some goals, and he was like, well done, yesterday you scored a couple. I said, well, that's what you'll get off me, you'll get goals. So I'm not going to say cocky, but I was like bright and bubbly, and it made him laugh. And I think he loved my personality, loved it. So I think he got me involved. He brought me on a sub, I think, the first time. It was an FA Cup game away, and I did the bar, and I think he was just happy. And then ever since then, I was on the bench for him, but I only started about three or four games under him. I was always sub, and I was coming on in games, but I think he didn't trust me fully. I think he loved me personality, loved me as a person, but didn't actually love me as a player, if that makes sense. So I just like some of the stories with him, like, I think he loved me that much. If he didn't put me on the pitch, he apologised to me at times, and he's like, I'm so sorry I didn't put you on. I'm like, you're the manager, you don't have to apologise to me, it's fine, sort of thing. But I think he felt like he disappointed me, and it just, I think we played against Sheffield Wednesday at home. I'd come on away at Blackpool and done well. I got an assist and nearly scored. And we were playing Sheffield Wednesday at home. It was a big game. We were sort of in and around the playoffs. I think they were up there. And he started me, so I was like, yes, I'm getting in. He played Humey just behind me and Simon. And we were 2-0 down at half time, and I'd done well. I'd come off thinking, mate, I'm still in this game. I'd done well. And he said, I'm tweaking the formation and I'm making a couple of changes. And he brought me off, and he grabbed me in the back at half time. I got the hook, and he's like, I'm so sorry, you've done really well. I'm like, well, fucking never did I. He's taken me off, so I didn't do that well. And I was absolutely raging. And he tweaked the formation, and one of the lads had brought on for me scored, and we come back and drew 2-2. And again, this is like it's just like, what do you do? It's like, it wasn't meant to be, which is fine. But it was just always the way with him. And I think a couple of teams had come in on deadline day for me. And I think we'd signed Ifianora. I don't know whether you remember his name, but big football league player. Big, strong, physical. And he was with us as well. He was on a short-term contract. So Brian Little grabbed us both before training, was like, we've had offers for you both. I'm not sure who we want to keep now and who we want to let go at the moment. So I was like, okay. I said, just see what happens during the rest of the day. So went straight in anyway. after Shane, he grabbed me and said, listen, I've decided I want to keep you. I said, well, that's brilliant, but I need a chance to prove myself for the rest of the season. I've got to earn a contract. So you've got to give me minutes. And he's like, I'll give you minutes. It's fine. So I was like, right, I'll stay put. I'll work to get back. And I think I played a total of 22 minutes for it. It was probably about 3 months till the end of the season. I just didn't have the chance to earn it. And I think, again, it just boils down to sort of not being trusting in me. He didn't trust me enough. And that conversation is a horrific conversation. It's just, I knew it was coming. And I think he started crying as well as I did. It was just like, I think because he liked me as a person. And I just think he didn't shock for a few days. It sort of hit you. And because I loved the club so much, the idea of me actually leaving was really difficult. So I found that really hard. And then I ended up signing for Rushden.
Yeah, so I've read as well that the Rushden move came about partly due to a conversation with Paul Hall.
Yeah, I think so. I think they've been in for me transfer. I think we played against them a couple of times that season, and they were a really good footballing side. They went down, but Hawley came on loan to us and did like really well. So obviously they'd spoken to him about me, and they were interested anyway. And they spoke to me grandma, believe it or not. My Paul grandma, who's not here anymore, but I was up in Newcastle, so my dad's family and his side of the family are from Newcastle. So I was up there, and it was just like a few days after like the season had ended, and they contacted me. I don't know how I told you to get hold of numbers. So they rang me. Grandma was like, "No, he's still in bed. I'm not waking him up. He can wait till he speaks to you." So, and then she's come up later on and said, sort of, some stupid football clubs just rang about you. I'm like, "Why you wake me?" You know what I mean? So anyway, there was a couple of other clubs interested and things like that. So they called me, and because I'd seen their setup there when we played against them, and they'd only been relegated, so I presume they'd be going for promotion the next season. So I thought, like, this is a good option. So when I met with them at a hotel in London and had talks and everything was fine. I went, saw the training ground. It was amazing. The facilities they had there were like a million times better than what I was used to, which sounds strange, but it really was. They'd thrown lots of money into it and things like that. So they'd show me the list of players they were going to sign. So I thought, mate, we are well going for a promotion here. So weighed everything up and thought, mate, that's where I'm signing. I turned the other clubs down and signed for them. But again, it didn't happen. It was just one of them things. And I think I scored a few goals in pre-season, and then the main striker they were going to sign to play up front with me was more of a target man, so I could just run him behind. That's what my game was. But he got a really bad illness, and he was out for, I think ended up being 7-8 months. So I was having to do this job as a centre forward where I was having to hold the ball up and battle against centre halves, which wasn't my game, and it just didn't happen. It was like in the first minute of the first game against Kidderminster, I've got a chance, and the keeper's pulled off an absolute worldie. If that goes in, everything's different. But everything I was doing didn't seem to come off. I was hitting posts, I was hitting bars, keeper was making saves. It just wasn't happening. And the fans were frustrated because they've been used to so much success that all of a sudden they've been relegated. And then in League Two, we weren't winning games, so they were getting on your case. And it was just hot. I hated the year, hated it. It was a real tough year mentally. Being away from home as well as hard, but just mentally I couldn't deal with it. It was just too much for me.
Yeah, and now Rushden Diamonds were actually dissolved in 2011. Thankfully, that's quite a rarity. But the same happened to Bury recently. Is that quite surreal looking back on your career to know that the club that you played for doesn't exist in that form anymore?
Well, I actually went back. I went back because when I was a scout at Files, we were playing in the FA Trophy against a club from Rushden Diamonds New Phoenix club we're playing against, called Biggleswade. That sounds like the most random football club name ever. So I went down, I think we were playing them in the second round of the FA Trophy. So I went down to watch them, to do a report on them. And I went to, I had to drive past Rushden, so I thought, right, I'll stop. The ground's gone. They've got houses developed on their ground, and the ground was a lovely ground, really nice. The training complex is gone, and it was just sad. It was just like looking at it, thinking, how's that happened? And I remember during my year there, the chairman had pulled out. So the Dr. Martin's man who'd done so well for them, he pulled out that year, and they struggled. Like, it was a fan-based ownership then, and I think they'd gone too far too quick. They didn't have the true fan base there. It wasn't big enough to compete with anything, and it just didn't go to plan. But going back there, it was sad, really. It was really sad, and I'd come up with some great players there as well. I mean, Billy Sharp come on loan and saved us from relegation, really single-handedly, and he went on to a ridiculous career later on. But there were some great players down there with me again. It was just sad that a football club with that strong foundations in terms of like all the facilities and that happened to, and it shouldn't happen. And that's why it's sad when some of the other clubs, like obviously have worked at Chester, but they've sort of restarted and they got to the confidence, and hopefully they'll be there again. The likes of Bury and things like it shouldn't happen to these types of clubs. It really shouldn't, and it's sad. It is sad that can happen.
Yeah. And what was Billy Sharp like as a young striker?
Just goals, like scary goals. Just really sharp. No confidence issues whatsoever, and it just worked for him. And I think that kick-started his whole. He went back to Sheffield United then, because I think he was struggling there. Went back there and got in the first team, scored goals, and then every club he ever been at has been goals since. And just a natural ability to score goals and a great attitude as well. I think that's always forgotten, but he was strong for his age. He was built like really well, and it just showed that he had the ability to go on and the mental strength to go on.
Yeah, and after Rushden, you actually played in Welsh football, Wales.
I hated it. I just felt like, if I'm being honest, an embarrassment. I felt like it was embarrassing to be playing at that level, and that sounds awful, and it's a really good level, and I got to play in Europe from there, which I'd never have got to do like for a professional club. So when I think back now, it's wrong. It shouldn't happen, but it's just how I felt. Like I'd gone from playing for Rushden, and I only signed for, I think it was Bangor, because they offered me really, really, really good money. And I panicked because I had mortgages to pay for and things like that, and I panicked and was like, right, I'll just sign for them because the money's coming in. I'll do well there and make sure everything's all right. But it was just I'd gone from playing in front of 6,000 people to playing in front of a couple of hundred, which felt like in a park, and I was like, I can't mentally deal with this. And it's bad because other players, that was the highest they would play at, and they were given everything they had. But I mentally couldn't switch on to it, and it's wrong. And that's not me. That's not me. I'd always work hard in whatever situation. I'm not saying I didn't work hard in the games, because I would have, but my attitude just wasn't right because I wasn't there. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to speak to anyone saying, I'm playing in Wales. It was like an embarrassment, where it's a good level and people get a good career from it now, and can end up playing in Europe and earn lots of money from this Welsh league. And I know people who've gone on to, Wildy was at Chester. He's played in the Champions League something like 25 times, scored goals in the Champions League. It's like unbelievable to say. So it's a massive part of your career. So I was just disappointed with how I sort of was in my own mind more than anything. But I think what happened as well, Shrewsbury came in for me halfway through that season, and I was under contract, and I think Shrewsbury were asking for me to play a game in front of their chairman, just a behind closed doors one, or a reserve one, just so we could see what he was saying. I was like, yeah, that sounds brilliant. The manager wanted me, said he wanted me, and the club I was at didn't allow me to play because I was under contract. And I just thought, what are you meant to do? I'm trying to and that just killed me off, really. That just burst me bubble in the end, and I just couldn't like cope with it anymore.
Yeah. What do you think, if you could get, now that you're looking back on your career, as you mentioned before, what move would you have made, do you think, after Rushden? Would you have?
I'd have probably held out for a bit from signing. As I say, there was another couple of clubs in for me at the time, and I just think it was new to me. So I think the idea of like, I've got to sign someone straight away, don't just take your time a little bit and make sure everything's correct for you first. And I'd take my time. I had an agent then. They were useless, to be honest. I think when I left Rushden, I remember them doing discussions, and they were pushing a piece of paper across the table in this discussions, and I'm thinking, is that it? Is that what I'm paying you to do there? They were just writing numbers down. I could have done it. It just didn't make sense. And I think when you need your agents, when you're struggling, that's when you need an agent.
Yeah.
When everything's all rosy and stuff like that, you don't need them, because they're just there in the background. But it's when you're struggling, and that's where no one was there for me. The agents never rang me again. I could still be playing at 41, and they could still think I'm on their book. So it's just, I honestly, there's rogue agents everywhere, and there's some really good ones, who look after the players all the time and do a lot for them away from football, and that's what their role is. But mine were useless, and they made no chance. So yeah, I'd got some proper advice at that point, some good strong advice, and just hold off a little bit and let's see what else comes up, sort of thing.
And after your spell in Wales, you played for Camel Laird, so you were back home. Did you enjoy that spell?
Do you know what I did? And it came out the blue, and I enjoyed the people sort of around me. The chairman there was brilliant with me. The other players were great, and it was a low level, but I started enjoying it again, because they were all dead passionate. They wanted to get promotions, and it was brilliant. I started scoring goals because I was just enjoying playing football again. There wasn't many people watching. You're probably looking at a couple of hundred, and it was just, there didn't seem to be any pressure, but I was enjoying it again. I enjoyed the group of lads I was with, and I still speak to some of them today. So I made good friends there, and good people as well.
Yeah. And you were actually player manager there in your 20s. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it came about out the blue. I'd been a player there, the manager gets sacked, and then the chairman sort of grabbed me and said, would you be interested? And I was like, well, I've never thought about it, so why not? Let's give it a go. And it's so hard. I think the idea of standing in the dressing room with people, some of the people who were older, even at that level, is hard. And they were great with me. The players were great, but there was a lot of financial issues at the time then as well, in terms of getting the money in. So we had a budget, players were paid, and I had to manage that budget, and that side of it's really difficult. And then as it progressed, the chairman pulled out for personal reasons, so we didn't have money to pay players. So I was like begging players just to turn up for me. I paid some players out my own money. I got an assistant. Kenny Hines was my assistant, believe it or not, because I thought I need someone strong. And I'm not going to say horrible, but I needed someone like that by my side. And he was like, his knowledge of the game was brilliant. So I asked him, and he'd come in, and we were paying players out of our own pockets sometimes just to get through to week, because we didn't want the clubs to go under. And people don't see that. And we played against Chester, and we were aiming to get to this Chester game because they were going to bring 2,000 fans to the ground, which would be huge. That'd keep the club going. And we got to it, and I think we got beat 2-1, I think. And they had big money, that team. I scored the one, believe it or not. I think it was probably my last competitive goal as player manager, but it was hard, really hard, but a great experience as well, and you learn a lot from it. So it was, I enjoyed it for the short time it was.
Because I was going to say, you've been a footballer, but that's a lot of responsibility to make sure people and your friends are paid on time. Was that a lot of pressure?
It is, it's huge pressure, and in the end, it was breaking. We couldn't do it anymore, so I was like begging players to play, and they were like, I need to work, I've got to work, I'm not getting paid, I'm not travelling 3 hours on a coach to play for nothing when I should be getting like £100 or whatever it may have been. So in the end, all those favours you ask for and all the players loving you and respecting you, that only lasts so long. And I totally get it, because if it had been me, I'd be like, no, I'm not giving up my time to do that when you've been promised something. So it was tough, and it takes a lot out of you. But again, I enjoyed it. It was a great experience as well.
Yeah, and some of the managers we've talked about today, you've mentioned Aldridge. He was maybe more of a shouter. Dave Watson was maybe too nice, and Brian Little would apologise. Yeah. Where would you compare yourself to those three in terms of your management style?
Oh, I don't know. It was totally different, because I think I was I'd be more of a talker, to be honest. I'd like to manage the players, like everyone on an individual basis. I wasn't one for screaming and shouting. That's why I brought Kenny in, you see, so he could do all that horrible stuff. But I think if I ever went back into it, I think I'd be more the talker, because I knew I responded more to that. Now, everyone responds to different things differently. Some players need shouted at, they need to be angry going out on the pitch, and then they'll change the way they're playing. But I think I'd rather be I think nowadays there's a lot more managers who are a lot more personal with the players. And I like that side of it. And I think if I'd have had that as a player, I'd have responded more to that personal touch. Like you see Klopp walking around giving his players a hug, and I hear podcasts where there's managers who will find out about their family lives outside football and know all about them, ask questions, because that's such an important part of a footballer's life. And if things are not going great outside of football, your mind's not going to be on football. So these are all these little details which I love. And I think managers nowadays are doing that more and more. And I think it's an amazing thing. And I think they're getting different energies out of players by doing that. Obviously, there's a time where you've got to shout and you've got to make them realise that what they're doing isn't correct. But I think managing in football and managing in any job is similar. Obviously, you've got to have understand the tactics, but that's where your coaches can come in and help you with that. And you have people around you who understand that as much as you do. But managing people is about communication. That's what it's about, and it's putting your idea across and then taking that on board and wanting to do it. And I think it happens in everyday life as well. So I think having those communication skills can help you in any part of life, and I think it's that important. That's my career advisor stuff coming out there, isn't it?
Yeah. And you've been a successful scout as well, but when your playing career did come to an end, did you have a plan?
No plan. Again, this is something that needs to be looked at, because there's nothing given to you. You don't speak about stuff like that, because I understand you've got to be single-minded and say, I'm going to be a professional footballer. You've got to be that single-minded. You've got to have that belief. But even players who are playing at you'd say League One, League Two, some Championship as well, are not going to have enough money to just decide what they are going to do. You are going to have to go to work. You are going to have to earn some money when you finish playing. Kevin Ellison's a prime example. He's finished now at 42 or 43, and he's got to get a normal job. He's working in a school as well, so he's got a normal job outside of football, and he's doing coaching stuff as well on the side. But you will have to, and now he's played in the Football League probably for 20 years, more appearances than anything, and he's still got to go and get a normal job. So this side of it has got to be looked at. I know players who've come out, and Al Navarro's a scouser. He finished playing at Brighton when they were in the Championship. I think the last time I spoke to him, he's driving down for Amazon, because he's got to earn money. That money goes after so long. So I just think that side of it, it's hard. And obviously your skills are in football, so that's why so many go into coaching and things. But to make any good money out of coaching, you've got to work crazy hard to get there. You've got to be so determined. You've got to have a chance to get into a football club. And even then, because I look at John Achterberg now at Liverpool, he has worked so hard to get to where he is, so hard. And he's probably been there for 7 years until he was able to get into the first team. So he's had to put that effort in. Now, I spoke to him when he was still with the youth teams and things like that, doing it. And he was working 40, 50-hour weeks to earn just what me or you perceive as an average wage. And it's not the perception that people think footballers or ex-footballers will have, but he had to put that effort in. Now, he's done amazingly well in his first team coaching. He's been cemented there under a few managers now. So he has earned that right to do it. But as an ex-player, you either need one of your ex-teammates to go and be a manager of a club, and you will I'm not going to say hang on to their coattails, but you will get the opportunity to go along that ride with them. Or you've got to put crazy amounts of effort in the background to work hard to get there. So I didn't have a plan. The scouting came out the blue. I'd finished as manager of Camel, and again, I knew the manager of Chester then. He was a local fella, and his assistant was Gary Jones, who I played at Tranmere with. And Youngie just contacted me and said they're looking to go more professional in everything they do, and they want a full-time scout. Would you be interested? So I didn't really understand what went into the role. So I was like, yeah, I'll talk about it. I'll find out a little bit more. And then once I got into it, I absolutely loved it, because I really felt part of what they were doing. Sometimes scouting in the background, but they integrated me as part of their management team. And I was feeding straight into them, team reports, player reports, everything. And I felt like what I was doing was having an impact, what they were doing in games, and I loved it. But he got on that ride again where it's up and down too. So if the first team didn't win on a Saturday, I'd be checking my report, saying, what haven't I put in there? What have they changed? Why didn't they get onto that? Why didn't they see that? And your mind starts going again. So it's tough, but that's because I care so much as well. So it was a surprise that came about, but I absolutely loved it. And obviously at Chester, we went through the leagues quite quickly, and it was brilliant, because I don't think many clubs at that level had scouts or anything like that. So it was a big deal for them to do that.
Yeah. And when you're a scout for a club, Alex, how much is it up to you to decide who you go and watch, and how much is it down to the club to tell you where to be?
It depends what level of scout and what type of club you're at. So Chester was just down to me. I get calls off agents, I get calls of people he's doing well. I'd look at the papers, I'd look at local players, I'd look at everything. So that was down to me. He solely left that down to me because I was the only one. But if you've got a scouting network, then the head of that scouting network will be having names and be sending those names out to be watched and looked at. And if anyone's doing well, go and look at it. And then comes into how many reports you would do before sort of the management team would have a look at them. So it's all levels. So once I'd gone to Tranmere, we were trying to implement a scouting network, okay, which didn't take off. But a club at that level should have had that in place. There should be a scouting net, but it takes a lot of money to put into it. So you've got to have the money to put into it. You don't get out until you put in. So you've got to sort of take that on board. Like you've got to be willing to spend money on the scouting side of it. And if you are, then you'll reap the benefits later on. But it's not a straight away thing. So it depends on the manager and how they want it really, and how often they want players looked at before they look at them, or are they going to just take your word for it, or is it people above saying they need to see them and things like that. So there's lots of the politics side of it, but it depends on who's managing the club.
Yeah. And just looking for some insight into a scouting report, how long will it take to compile? What goes into it? How many pages long is it? What are the details that go into it?
Again, it depends on the manager and what they want. So some managers will want a whole book and it could take hours to do, all right? And a lot of the detail involved in there, I think, just big words which don't really mean anything. I've seen reports that go on forever and you could have summed it up in a shorter thing. But again, if the manager wants that, he wants that detail, that's fine. So it depends on who the manager is. The ones that Charles didn't. So my if I was doing a team report, mine would be about 4 pages long. Probably take about 3 or 4 hours to do it. So you take notes during the game and you go away and do it, and then send it in. He'd look at that and then go through it with me, and then he would go through that with the team. Some clubs would ask you to do a presentation on that team, but then you'd incorporate, the bigger the clubs you are, you could incorporate sort of stats into that, but not only stats, videos. That's where your analysis would come in. So you'd write down minutes on the match, and then you could get a snippet of what you've seen to put on a video, so it's there for everyone to see. So as you move up the levels, there'll be more and more detail involved in it. So I was lucky enough to go and look at some of the stuff Liverpool do and the amount of detail they could watch 10, 12 games of the team and have the statistics on what they're doing, things like, and this is all incorporated in one report. So it might take 3 or 4 people to formulate this one report that comes in together. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. But again, it's what you see as well. So everyone sees different things. So I might see something different than another scout sees. So I've got to sort of look into the man who I'm working for. What does he want? What does he want me to see? What does he need me to see? And go on from there. So it's a lot more detailed than people think it is. And the more you go up the levels, the more detailed it gets. But then when you're looking at players, again, you've got to scout the player that's going to fit into that team and how the manager wants to play. You could go and get the best player, but he might not fit into the way you play. So what's the point in that? It's not going to work. So I think the most successful scouting and teams at the moment with scouting scout the best players for that position or for that team. Not necessarily the best individual players, but for that team, it's going to work. And I think that's where I think Liverpool previously for the last year, 2 years have done that really well. They've not picked the best players, but they've gone and plucked players who aren't necessarily the biggest names, but they fit perfectly into what they're going to do. And I think that's such a big thing. I think anyone could go and sign players, but are you just putting a team on the pitch who can't really do the jobs? There's no point in doing it. And I think that's where Everton have struggled a little bit over the last few years. There seems to be just random players signed for whatever reason, but there's no structure to why they're signing them. That's from the outside what it looks like to me. Or they've panicked and thought we have to sign someone, so we'll get them there. They might do all right, and it's in the hope they will do well. Whereas if you plan it right, you should be, and nothing's ever perfect, you should be 80-90% certain that will work out because they will fit into the way you're playing.
Yeah. When it comes to Premier League clubs, 90% of the players they sign will be well known. What's it like when you're scouting for a club that's maybe in the 3rd, 4th, 5th division? And, is it a case that sometimes you will only get 90 minutes of a player? And what can you do to find out more?
Yeah, it's that side of it. So when I was at Tranmere, you try and look at them 2 or 3 times and get an overall report, and then you get the management teams looking. But sometimes you don't get that opportunity. If you have to move quickly, it's got to be sort of on your back as well. So the manager's got to trust you. But the amount of stuff, so you have things like Y Scout now and things like that. So you can go and plug someone's name into these scouting networks, and videos of clips of them shooting will come up online. So you can look a lot online, and you'll have videos of every single player out there. So you could type in Alex Hay shooting, and you'd have probably 1 shot, because I only probably had 1 shot in my career. But it would come up, so you get like 60 shots to look at, or you put in left-footed crosses. So those snippets would come up. So you could have a look in more detail at players. But I think the other side of it is the due diligence again. So that side of it is finding out about their personality. So that's where you'd have to use your contacts to find out what they're like off the pitch. Possibly speak to family members. It's been done in the past where you'd speak to them. You'd speak to people who've worked with them. So coaches, players, it could go down all that. And some coaches would be like, I just don't think his personality is great, or he doesn't do this great, or his attitude's great when things are going badly. So that's where you think, right, he's got a perfect attitude, that's what we want. Or maybe he wouldn't really fit into the first team. So that side of it's really important as you move forward, because you get one bad egg in a dressing room, and that can change the whole ethos.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what was it like personally for you, Alex, to go back to Tranmere as a scout?
It was amazing, but again, it just timing was just wrong. It came from out the blue, really. I think someone had spoken to me, wanted more local people who were from the area, because he didn't know the area, Bob. I just got a meeting with him. I don't know how it happened, but I got a meeting with him. I sat down with him for about a couple of hours. I took my reports in. And we just got on in terms of what he wanted to do. He wanted to play total football. He was fresh. He had good ideas. He wanted to implement me into it. He sort of bought into my personality and what I would bring, and what we wanted to do worked. And it was done over, I think, 2 days. I'd made my decision. They'd offered me a deal. I was like, yeah, brilliant. The start of the season didn't go perfect. It could have. It was like we were so close to winning games. Didn't go great. But it was the start of the season, and Mark Palios came in, and it was apparent from the very first meeting that he wasn't his choice for manager. It wasn't going to happen. And I think Mark had a meeting with the whole staff and sort of said, he wasn't my man, but we'll just see where it goes. And then we've gone into the manager's office, and he's been like, he doesn't want anything to do with me, sort of thing. And it was apparent. So the pressure was on to get results. Mickey Adams came in. I can't say much, but we weren't going to see eye to eye. It was never going to work, and it didn't work. And I was excited to work with him at the start, because again, he's working in the Premier League. He's there, so I wanted to learn. I was desperate to learn, and it just wasn't going to work. Personality, total clash. It was just not going to happen. So I went my separate ways, and that was that. It was a disappointing end. I was gutted to how it ended. But it had to happen, because it was only going to end up in disaster, really. But even the club, when I first got there, they'd been relegated, and it was a bad atmosphere in and around the place. I think everyone had been used to losing. People were worried that in the staff, people were worried about losing the job. So it was very, I'm going to say poisonous, but it was tough, because people were so defensive about keeping their jobs. They were just concentrating on themselves, so that the team ethos wasn't really there behind the scenes. It was just like everyone in it for themselves, because they're looking after the livelihoods, and I totally get that. But to move forward, you've got to have good cohesion, and everything you do from the back and staff to everyone, it just wasn't there. So it was a difficult place, and you could see that by the way they got relegated. It was just that needed to change. The club needed to change from the inside before it started going out, and slowly but surely they've done it.
And then Stockport followed, and then Fylde, where you were tasked with sort of building that up, that scouting network. What was that experience like?
Yeah, again, Fylde was interesting. So Stockport came at the blue again, because Neil Young, who was manager of Chester when I went there, asked me to go there, and I thought, right, I'll go there. It's a big club. Let's go again. Again, the results were, and they're a similar club to Tranmere. They were in a really bad place, like poisonous in the club and the fans, and everything was going wrong, and it just didn't work out. We'd signed lots of players. The players didn't work out, and that sort of ended quite quickly. But just before, probably about a month and a half before it had ended, Dave Challoner had contacted me and said, would you be willing to have a conversation with Fylde? So I said, I'm always willing to have a conversation. I had a conversation with him. He sold me the club and what they were planning to do. I was really impressed, but out of loyalty, I stuck with where I was because I didn't want to leave a sinking ship. If that makes sense, things weren't going great, and I didn't want to be one of those where I just walk out just at the end before we get sacked, sort of thing. So I stayed with it, and then once we got sacked, I contacted Charles and said, obviously, you might have sorted out now when I've been sacked, so I'm in a different position now. Is that still option still there? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. We can do it. So I'd known Charles from my Tranmere days. I'd helped him out when he was at Fylde. So I'd given him lots of reports on clubs he was coming up against, and I think they were playing against Plymouth in a big FA Cup game, and I'd done a report on Plymouth a few weeks previously, which had given him. So it was I'd always kept in touch with Chal anyway. And yeah, that came about, and it was brilliant again. We went through the leagues. We had some amazing Wembley appearances. We lost in the playoffs at Wembley. We won the FA Trophy at Wembley. But again, he held me really important to their team and what they were doing. So he'd have my match reports up in the dressing room before games and everything like that. So I felt like an important part of their team. And then that sort of came to an end as well. It was just around about of Corona taking over and lockdown and things like that. So that sort of happened with that. And then I ended up starting my coaching business because I think you were still able to do one-to-one. So I was looking at a way of bringing some income in, really, extra income, and that's what I did. And since then, I've loved what I'm sort of doing.
Yeah, and in your playing career, Alex, you've alluded to the fact these sliding doors moments where you've maybe come off and the substitute who's replaced you scored the winner. Do you think that gave you a really good perspective when you were a scout, that you weren't too quick to maybe judge a player?
Yeah, I think that's important, but I'll look at different things as well. So I used to like to go and watch them in the warm-up. I used to go and like to watch them in the warm-up to see what their attitude's like in the warm-up, and I'd be more about like when things aren't going right, what are they doing? Are they still doing all the stuff they should be doing? Are they still getting in shape? They're not sulking, they're not on the side of the pitch. So I'd look for things like that. Obviously, I'd look how they're interacting with other teammates and the sort of attitude and things like that. So yeah, I would I'd look at different things differently because of how I was as a player. And then you try and find out more about the mental side of them when you come to the stages of what I've wanted to sign that player.
Yeah, and just finally, Alex, you mentioned the coaching. Just how enjoyable is that to be training future players?
It's amazing, but do you know what? It's not about coaching the future players. So although I've coached some brilliant academy players, really good academy players who could go on to have got the potential to develop into professional players, it's more the other ones that I'm concentrating on, because I've always seen football as a massive social tool. Mm-hmm. Whether you're good at it, whether you're not good at it, to be able to have a conversation about football or have a kick around in the playground is massive. Socially, it's huge. And you will always gain friends from that. Whether you're rubbish or you've just got your group of mates who you're playing with, to be able to kick a ball in the yard is such a big social thing, especially in the areas where we come from. So I try and look on that side of it and the confidence development, because I think there's so many sort of skills and qualities involved in football that you can take them anywhere. So if you can develop the confidence in that, then it can take you in different places. But I think confidence is such a big thing in life in general. And I think there's a lot of pressure on football now from grassroots all the way up. I think there's too much pressure, and football should be about enjoying. So I think what I've enjoyed most is working on players who've never kicked on a ball before or are too anxious to go into a team at the moment. So they'll come to me for a few weeks and I'll develop that sort of that confidence and that belief in themselves that they go on, and then they go into the first grassroots team, and it's amazing. It doesn't matter. That's what it's done. I've been able to coach people with learning disabilities, with physical disabilities, and it's so like heartwarming to see them smile playing football, and that's what it's about. That's what football should be about. And I enjoy those ones possibly more than I do than being someone who can ping a ball right to my feet 80 times out of like 81 times out of it. So it's just, as much as I love the top players, it's amazing to do it. The bottom ones are just as important to me. So I really enjoyed that side of it. And if I can give someone enjoyment out of football, then it's worth it.
Yeah. Oh, thanks a lot for taking the time out, Alex. Really appreciate it.
No
Fascinating to hear your memories and your insight.